Welcome everyone. So today I have the pleasure of playing SYNCANITE. This is a new game coming to GameFound on January 20th. I am here with Timon, the creator, developer of the game, and he's going to showcase it to me today so you guys can know what to expect before the crowdfunding starts on January 20th. So Timon, just take it away, show us what we're doing here, how this game works, the flow, the mechanisms and everything, and what kind of game it is.
Perfect. So first of all, thank you, Frank, for the opportunity to be here. And hi, everyone. The campaign will start on the 28th of January.
Oh,
Just to
sorry.
correct that. No worries, but
Sorry, sorry.
don't expect it to air earlier. um, all right, we have a game here. It's called SYNCANITE Foundation that offers you, as the player, an immersive experience. You will be an oligarch and try to take over the world, but also need to eliminate your rivals. So it is a confrontative game for 2 to 4 players. It can be expanded to 6 players, and we're using military, economic, and political pressure to achieve our goals. And these are the game phases that we're going through, and I will explain shortly. But before I explain that, let's simply talk about the material that we are seeing first, so that we know what we're actually dealing with. And now I will zoom in. As you can see, Frank took the blue corner while I'm taking the red corner here, and every player has a player board, which is in the version for 5 or 6 players. So it's not optional, it's just a design that helps you to sort stuff. You do not need it to play if your desk is small or something like that. And on the player board you see that we have some different spaces that help me to explain the material that you're dealing with. So here on the left side we have 3 resources. Syncanite, which is an energy crystal basically, which is why this game is called SYNCANITE Foundation, because we as the players form a council of a trading league that is mining and distributing the Syncanite. So it's the main resource we're talking about here. But there are also 2 more resources. For example, here are the goods, things that we produce, or the food that we use to feed our armies, for example. The resources can also be found here on the markets. For example, here's the goods market. On the upper side we have the food market, and here we have the Syncanite market. I will talk about how these markets work shortly, but we want to keep structure here, so just that you know, when you get, for example, 1 Syncanite, you can place 1 cube here on the board. So simply that you know, alright, I have 1 Syncanite at the moment, or 5 or 10 or whatever. Regarding 10, there is also a special thing that will be a meeple later in the game, but in Tabletop Simulator we're using these here to say that we have 10 Syncanites. So at the moment on Frank's board there is 11 Syncanite at this moment, right? So what's the next thing on the board? We have a place for the doctrine, which is something that we will draw in phase 1 and gives us a unique advantage. This will be something that makes the game a bit asymmetrical due to the fact that each player might get 1 of 3 doctrines here. For example, we have scheming, which allows you basically to play a political game and focus on your economy. We have superiority, that will give you armies and play a defensive strategy. And we have malice, which will give you operation cards, which are really nasty cards to play an aggressive and somewhat criminal game, because all of these doctrine are related to the nations that we have on this board here. For example, as you can see, the malice doctrine, which is related to the nation of Tychus, is the doctrine that describes how the people here in this area basically solve the problems. And these are capitalists, but also industrialists that really do not care that much about playing fair, which is why you get the operation cards, right? The superiority doctrine is related to real here in the West, where we have the agrarian traditional lands. This is basically some kind of a monarchy that values militarism and strength, which is why you get armies. And last but not least, we have scheming, which is related to Avado in the north, where most of the Syncanite is found, which basically means that the people here are really rich. They are spiritualists that are also using the magic powers that arise from controlling Syncanite. And due to the fact that they're so rich, they do not need to get their hands dirty, but rather bribe, which is why you get the bribery cards, these white cards, for example, thumbs up in Parliament, which we need later. And these cards get drawn in the first phase, so basically with drawing these cards, the first asymmetry comes into play, and this card gets placed on the board, for example, here. And the next asymmetry that might come into play is the dignitary, which can be placed in the middle. We will not play in this game with dignitaries due to the fact that these are for experienced players. They make it more complicated, so they are optional. But just as you see, for example, here is a hero card, Cara Flassera. She's the daughter of the Relian Guardian, so basically she's a noble person, and if you want to use her effects, you get them here. So this is the second asymmetry that comes into play. And the third one is that you as a player also have a role. For example, Frank has the investor role on his board. And this role basically allows you to do one special thing that other players are not allowed to. For example, the investor can build buildings onto this map. And as you can see here are these spaces. And for example, this thing here, the temple ruins, can be placed onto the temple ruins, which basically means that the board itself can be developed over time by the investor. And there are also 5 more roads that we can explore shortly that give you some more other options. This is basically what we have in the middle. The middle of the board are our symmetries that we are building together. So we are building some kind of ideology. We're having a legal status, for example, being the investor or being the chairman or being the magnate or something like that, which gives you basically your rank and your position in the society. And last but not least, you have your dignitary, which basically is your main person, your main tool, your main general that fulfills your actions, basically. And on the right side, we have some more resources that we need to handle frequently. For example, the armies that are represented by these chips here. A player can have up to 30 armies. We're starting with 5. But when we play with 2 people, we are starting with 10, so I will double this. And we have enough space for money, because on the upper side here, we have some money cards, mini cards from $1 to $100. Everything is available. We're using them, as you know, from classic games like Monopoly, right? A last little thing to the player board, there's also space for privileges. You can have up to 2 privileges. These are bribery cards, so from the white stack here. And this is, for example, privilege. It's called insider trading, which basically allows you to buy stuff cheaper and to sell stuff a bit more expensive. That's just that you know what we're dealing with on the player board. Questions to that?
No questions at the moment. Nope.
Perfect.
I'm more of a play as I go guy. So like, I think I learn better as I'm playing. If I have any questions, then I'll bring it up.
All right. The great thing is that this game is learned best by playing. But I personally think that it makes sense to know what materials we're dealing with. You now know you have 3 resources. We have some asymmetries, and we have our daily action stuff here. That's basically the little overview I wanted to give you. And
so those privilege cards are pretty much passive abilities, correct?
Right, but they also give you resources for free.
Okay.
What we now need to talk about is the player hand. Just really briefly, you have 10 starting cards. 5 of them are victory conditions and have these colored cards. It's basically in this game you have.
What just happened there?
This shit happens.
Okay.
The thing is, you can win this game with 5 ways. We can, for example, aspire chancellorship, which basically means that you try to win this game by politics. Or, for example, you can aspire supremacy, which is a military victory. These cards here are to be ignored in the beginning because they are just informing you about potential victory conditions, but also you can lose these cards if players, for example, assassinate you. Stuff we will get to that later. And the other cards that we have in our hand are the rejection, the consent cards. these we will use in Parliament to vote on laws, and the pact with the order is something like a little joker if we are losing a victory condition that we need later, so you can get one victory condition back. Which basically means that the hand cards can be ignored in the beginning, which basically means that we can finally start to simply give it a go and play test, right?
Okay.
Good. I'm playing board up. Oh, just a second. Great. Every player has a player aid, which shows the 4 phases that we are playing. The first phase we will start with is the conflict phase, and we are all playing at once. So basically, if it states redraw doctrine, we will redraw the doctrine cards we talked about. So, Frank, do you want to draw first or shall I?
Yeah, sure. So how many? I draw how many?
1 card and you directly place it here on the player board.
Okay.
Okay, so you as an oligarch are in Tychus for this cycle, which basically means that the advisors you have are Tychan people, which basically means that you get 2 operation cards for free. So I'm giving your cards to you, while I am in real at the moment, and which is why I have these militarist people around me, which means that I get some more armies. So I will also start with 10 armies, but I will also get another 3. There we go. So as you can see, I'm starting with 13 armies while you start with 10, but you also start with 2 operation cards. And let's briefly talk about an operation card so that you are able to use them. This is an operation card that I took from the stack so that I do not know what Frank has, but basically this is the bunker, which allows you to you can place it onto one field so that it cannot be attacked anymore. And this card, as you can see, is red, which means that it adds a stack to the war crisis. In the middle here are 5 crises that are related to the 5 victory conditions. If one crisis triggers, you can win the game with it, and also one mechanic comes into play that helps you win with it. We'll get to that later, but just that you heard it. So the bunker card will add 1 onto war and can be played anytime, as it is written here. Some other cards can only be played in special phases, for example in phase 1 or in phase 2. Then you have a Romanic number here, which simply says 1 or 2 or whatever, right? Good. We need to decide who will be the starting player. We do this by rolling a dice. I have a 9.
Okay.
You have an 11, so you are allowed to start. Perfect.
Okay, so
you can take your cards into your hand, and now you are allowed to place as much armies as you want in a field that you want. The thing is, as you can see on this map, there are a lot of fields that are separated from each other by these white dots here. And each field gives you resources. For example, here verse gives you 1 food and 2 goods. The number of armies that you place does not affect how much resources you get. It only reflects how much pressure are you willing to give onto that field to get it. Because we will not fight with our armies, we will basically push each other out of the fields, because war is not active. But when war is active, our armies can actually go on the battlefield and slaughter each other. So
interesting. Okay.
So you take as much armies as you want and place them in one field. Then it's my turn. And we're doing this turn by turn.
So I place them wherever I want.
Exactly, because we are in a globalized world, and we are a globalized society of oligarchs that are working in all the 3 states, which is why we are really immobile. The thing is, when war starts, this mobility will go away.
Okay, so I'm gonna place 4 over here.
Alright, so you're really making clear that you definitely want to have this field, because if I want to push you out, I need to use 5. In the case that I use 5, just to do a little demonstration for you, right? I'm now taking 5 armies here. If I place them in here, you get your armies back, because they did not fight, they don't die, So basically, then you can go somewhere else, right?
Okay.
And now comes the asymmetry into play, because I am a superior player, which basically means that I have a defensive advantage, meaning that my armies can only be outbid by doubling the amount, which basically means when I place, I have the red ones here, when I place, for example, 2 armies here, you need at least 4 armies to push me out, due to the fact that I'm superior. And to talk briefly about your asymmetric advantage as a malice player, if you outbid me, I won't get all armies back, but 1 less. Because you're such a malice person, you're simply killing 1 army and saying, oops.
Okay, interesting.
So I place 2 armies into the lands of Eternal Night, and it's your turn again.
Okay, so I'm placing more armies again, correct?
Exactly.
And I'm not collecting the resources at the moment. That's in the...
When all players played their armies or do not want to place any more armies, then we harvest all the fields that we control, and then we take our armies back.
Okay.
I will recommend you to not place that much armies here, because then you have no more. Then I can place.
Oh, I was trying to place 2.
Okay.
Yeah, it accidentally took all.
Okay.
Okay.
I was seeing my chance there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm placing 3 armies in the moundy lands here to claim the 4 food. Now it's your turn again.
Okay.
So as you will see, a pretty dynamic session here.
Yeah, let's just put another 2 right here.
Okay, and I'm placing 2 here. Your turn.
Okay, so I got 2 more left. Let's go right up here.
The thing is, you can also place 1 army if you want. You are not forced to place 2. So the number of resources that are available is irrelevant. So some people think that they need to place 2 armies because they want to harvest 2 resources. That's not true. You can also place just 1 army, okay? So now I have 5 armies left, which means that I can go here, and there, and there, and there. And I will not outbid you anywhere else because I'm pretty fine with what I get. This is the end of phase 1's bidding competition, basically. Now we are paying the fields by harvesting, which basically means that, as you can see, I'm placing the yield of each field onto the field, so that we can double check if everyone got what they what they should get, so to say. By the way, guys, when you listen to me, this is a German game. I'm from Germany. I hope that my English is alright for you to hear. So if I'm missing,
I'm doing fine.
Great. So if I'm missing the words from time to time, I hope that you forgive me, so to say. All right. Start cloning some more resources. This, by the way, is something that we are doing together when we are on a real table. Right. So now we can check. Did everyone receive what they deserve, so to say?
2 1 1 2 1 2. Everything looks good here.
Great. Then everyone can take their resources and their armies back.
So take the resources or the army? Oh,
both.
Okay.
Both. Let's collect this stuff here really fast.
So taking it all. Okay.
By the way, this was one of your cards, right?
Oh, I missed. Whoop.
So you have 7 cards in total at the beginning. Perfect. Good. Now this was phase 1 basically. When you take a look at the phase 1 again, we drew our doctrines. We put the cycle dice onto 1. The cycle dice is this one here. It simply counts in which cycle we are, because playing all 4 phases is 1 cycle, and the game usually ends after 3 to 5 cycles. So we are not the classic Euro game that gives you points to win, but we actually need to fulfill a victory condition that we fight for, which usually happens after 3 to 5 cycles. And we count the cycle dice because there are some cards that scale with the cycle dice. Okay.
Okay.
And when we take back our look onto the player aid, we deployed our armies, we harvested resources, and we withdrew our armies. And the next thing in the player aid are conquest moves and imperial servitude, right? But the thing is, you see that conquest moves and imperial servitude both have this symbol of war and tyranny. When we take a look, for example, here in the middle, here are the crisis cards, war and tyranny. And due to the fact that these cards are not open at the moment, we ignore these points. So, for example, when war is triggered, we're doing conquest moves, right?
Okay.
That's how the mechanics basically evolve and develop when our crisis gets active. So we're directly jumping into the offering phase in phase 2, which allows us to do 2 transactions. A transaction is a trade. Basically, you can use your resources to, for example, make money on the markets or to buy cards. And as we know, there are 2 types of cards that we can buy. There is bribery, so the voting cards or the privileges with, for example, thumbs up, thumbs down, right? And 1 bribery card costs 2 syncanites. So if you pay 2 blue and put them back into the bag, then you can draw 1 card here. And the thing is, a transaction is not limited in its quantity. So for example, if you have 4 syncanite, you can use 1 transaction to pay 4 syncanite to draw 2 cards. Okay?
Okay.
The thing is, you are not allowed to mix up. So for example, if you want to, if you have 5 syncanite, you can use 4 syncanite to buy 2 cards, but then the 5th syncanite you cannot use to sell or something like that. And selling works on the markets exactly this way. For example, if I want to sell 1 syncanite, I place it onto the market like this. And you see that in line here, there's the number 6. So basically I sold this syncanite for 6 capital, which basically means that I get 1 and 5 make 6, right? If I want to buy syncanite, both players do not start with money, but we can get money by selling. If we sell, if you want to buy 1 syncanite, we simply pay 6 and take it from the market. And through that mechanism, we have a maximum stock in the market, and as you know, if the offer on the market is low but the demand is high, the prices will rise, and the other way around. So, Frank, you now have 3 options. You can either use syncanite to buy bribery, or goods to buy operation cards, so more of these black nasty cards with that you can outmaneuver people, or you can use your food to buy more armies. But you need to keep in mind that armies also cost food maintenance.
Yeah.
And the
I'm gonna go with the. I'm gonna go with the operation cards.
All right. So you're paying 3 to draw 1. This was your first transaction, which means that now it's my turn.
And there's no hand limit, correct?
There is a hand limit of 10.
Okay.
And the victory conditions do not count in. So basically at the moment you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards. Yeah. So you're allowed to buy 2 more cards at max.
Okay.
So I have at the moment 5 cards, and I will use my syncanite to buy a lot of bribery cards because I'm aspiring a political game here. And as you can see, I can afford exactly 4 cards for 2, 4, 6, 8 syncanite. So I'm basically putting 8 Syncanite into the back to draw 4 bribery cards. And I see that I did not shuffle the deck because I got 4 times the same card. That I will correct that. That is not... shit happens. Alright. This looks better. Now it's your turn again. You can do your second transaction now.
Okay. I'm gonna... to SYNCANITE, and I will also buy 1 bribery card.
Alright, here you go. So now, before I play my second transaction, I want to play a card because I had the great luck to draw 1 of the 5 privileges here. And I play it because I want to have more space in my hand. The private military company allows me to get 3 armies in phase 1. So I permanently get 3 armies each phase 1. And I can also buy and maintain armies with capital. So I'm not forced to do that with food, but I can also use capital now, which makes it more flexible for me to finance armies. And the second thing I will do is I will buy some operation cards that I can afford. 1 cards, 2 cards, because I have 6 goods. So basically I'm burning my 6 goods here. I usually push them into the back again, right? So that I buy 2 operation cards. And now I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I would not have played my privilege, I could not have bought 2 operation cards, right? But this, the fact that I played it also warns Frank that I will get armies for free, so that he might build a counter strategy or something like that, okay? Good, we played our 2 transactions. Now we're taking a look at the offering phase again. Speculative transactions and majority shareholder are both only active when the monopoly crisis, the economic victory crisis basically is active. So we can ignore that, as same for humanitarian donations, which is related to triage, which is basically a famine that we can trigger so that we can then save the world. Really nasty. And then we will go to maintenance of armies, fees and income. And I jumped over the dignitary auction because the dignitary auction is where we use our money to buy the dignitaries, the hero cards here. And as we said at the beginning of the game, we will not play with this expanded mechanic in our first game here. So we need to pay army maintenance. The thing is, in a player game with 3 to 4 players, we start with 5 armies and have 5 maintenance limit, which basically means that you need to pay for the 6th army that you own. But due to the fact that we are playing a dual mode here, we expand this to 10. So basically, Frank, you do not need to pay any maintenance, as you gently just have your 10 starting armies. But I got 3 armies through superiority that gave me a lot of resources, as you have seen, which is why I have 13 armies. So I need to pay the maintenance now for the armies that were in service. So I'm paying free food now to maintain my 13 armies, right?
Okay.
Good.
So how much is to maintain the army again? How much food
per army? This.
Oh wow.
This always needs to be paid at the end of phase 1, but only for the armies that you have above 10, and only for the armies that were active in phase 1. So if you buy
so only when they're above 10.
Above 10, right. So for example, if you have 15 armies now, then you would have paid 5 maintenance for the 5 armies above 10.
Got it.
Good. By the way, if you buy armies in phase 2, of course you do not need to pay maintenance for them. They were just recruited, right? Good.
Okay.
So we take a look at the player aid again. Maintenance, fees and income is paid, because there are some cards that give you fees or income or whatever. So this is the place where we use them, but we don't have them. So we go into the parliament phase. Cutthroat politics and election of the Chancellor is related to the political crisis revolution, so we will go with revealing 2 laws. The laws are located here on the map. And laws are the 4th asymmetry of the game, because laws will heavily impact not just the way this game develops, but also what rules come into play. And now we have a situation in which we have 2 red laws. The colors, as you can see, are far too bright here in this simulator, but when they're printed they look red or green or purple, right? And the thing is that these laws are built up this way. You see, there's a symbol on the top, so in case you're not sure about it right away, you can take a look at the symbol and you see this is the symbol of war, which basically means if this is a war and military related law, that will push up the counter for war by 4. It pushes it up by 4 because in the middle of the card there's a 4 in the square, right? And the law has this effect. In phase 2 you can pay 10 capital, and if you do this, a player gets 5 armies. If a player does not pay, they will lose half of their armies, which is pretty heavy. And the role strategos is exempt from the fee. We do not have the role strategos in game at the moment, but I'm just showing you that the player could have this role, which would benefit from being free from this fee. So as you can see, these laws also correspond with the color of the role that you have. Okay?
Good.
The other law, conscription, is a red law as well, so we had a lot of luck. We might trigger war here. Conscription rises the cycle dice, the crisis dice by 3 for war, and for all players under 10 armies, they lose a victory condition in phase 1. And for all players with at least 10 armies, they get 1 operation. Due to the fact that we are in the duel mode, we usually hit this, but there are also situations in which we don't. So, might be interesting how this plays out. And the thing is, we'll now vote on both laws. And for that, I'm pushing them apart a bit.
Okay.
Because now the consent and rejection cards are relevant. I'm showing them again here. With rejection, obviously you can reject. With consent, you can support the law. The thing is that we as oligarchs are not elected members of parliament, which basically means that we can only affect laws by using our bribery cards to get people to vote for them, which basically means that this is not a democratic vote, but rather a spamming of cards, and the player who gets more cards, the law that gets more consent or rejection is either agreed on or it gets rejected. So basically now, Frank, you can play as much of your white cards on the laws as you want, and you do this face down if you want, so that no one knows how cards you basically bring into play. So for example, I'm simply placing these cards here, which is by the way a great opportunity to get rid of cards so that you have more space again.
Okay.
The thing is, you will not get these cards back. They will be discarded afterwards, because these are basically favors that you ask for. So this is basically the mechanic that you, for example, need the SYNCANITE from phase 1 to buy the bribery cards to be able to vote, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you vote everything that you wanted?
Yep.
Good. Then we will start counting. For that I am collecting and shuffling, so that we do not know who played what. This is not that relevant in a game for 2 players, but when you play with 3 or 4 or even more players, that gets especially relevant. And now we are counting for conscription first, alright? We have a consent, another, and even more.
Wow.
And the thing is, experienced players tend to negotiate. They say, I want conscription, I am playing a consent card. They can also play them openly if they want, by the way. But doing it face down is the usual way to go, because you want to deceive the people. And in that case, we could have negotiated, for example, that if you want this, then only one of us would have laid a card, or maybe we two lay one card, so that everyone needs to pay equal resources, right? So basically this law is now accepted, conscription is now in play, which means that the cycle counter, the war counter here gets up by 3. Now we take a look.
So I could have. So if, like, let's say it would have been a draw, I could have been like, you know what, I really want it, and I could have played a card face up to have it pass.
No, you can have played the cards face up while voting. Voting is now over. But so when we have a draw, we will throw a coin, because we do not know what the other members of parliament are basically doing by voting.
Okay.
But there's one special role which is called the chairman. And the chairman is an oligarch, who's actually a member of parliament, and by the way, the most important member of parliament, because he's the chairman of the parliamentary council, which basically means that he then can decide in the event of a tie. So basically, usually it's the way, if there's a tie, the chairman decides. And by the way, the chairman can also add or deduct 1 vote per law, which is a huge advantage, right?
Okay.
By the way, the chairman also forces the players to vote, because if they don't vote, the chairman will decide alone.
Okay.
Now I'm counting the next law. We have rejection. We have consent. Oh, now it gets interesting. We have rejection. And we have an intrigue card. You see, an intrigue card is a special card. And the intrigue card, as you can see, adds 1 point to revolution, because political power has been abused. Play this card face down in phase 3. The law shall be adopted regardless of the voting result.
Interesting.
Decree of the chairman. So this law gets into play as well, which basically adds another 4 points to war. So war's at 7 now. As you can see, this game will most likely open the war condition, and with that open the option for a military victory. But we'll see.
Cool. Yep.
Good. I will place these 2 laws here, simply so that we know where to find them. And phase 3 is now finished, because when you take a look at the player aid again, revealing 2 laws we did, voting we did, we also did assassinations. And if you want, I can briefly explain assassinations to you.
Yes, please. That sounds very interesting.
It's my favorite mechanic, by the way, because it's really Fallout. For that I need to take a look onto an assassination card. This is an assassination card, and do not worry, the text is really long on this card, but all of them work the same. So we will put this text into the rule book and add just a big number in the target on it. So don't worry. But the thing is, if this law here, for example, is voted on, solidary agriculture, right? It's an orange law, right? Because it has the triage symbol on it, basically. And there's an orange roll. Frank has the orange roll at the moment, right? Because you're the investor. So if I play this knife in the back card, hidden between the other consent and rejection cards, like this, for example, then we will count as we did just before. And when we then open them, we say, oh no, a knife in the back. And in that case, the target is Frank, because this card is found on the orange roll, which has the same color, on the orange law, which has the same color of Frank's roll, right? So basically now you got the knife in the back, and now we need to see, will you survive this assassination attempt? And the thing is, this knife has an attack value of 12. You can see this in the upper left corner where the little sword of the 12 is, right? So if you have at least 12 armies, you're safe, because your armies can stop the assassination attempt, because you as an oligarch, of course, are heavily guarded, right? So when you play more assassination at once, for example, I could have played 2 knives in the back at once, then you need 24 armies, which is far harder to block. So it's not, so you need enough assassination value, but also you need an opportunity. And due to the fact that we are so heavily guarded, you do not have this opportunity, not every time. And this is determined by the law colors that are drawn. So basically, the opportunities are switching from round to round depending on what law colors are drawn, right? So this is basically how assassinations work. And my dog is barking. I hope that you can
Yeah, I know.
hear.
Mine's about to start barking, barking too. Just he's ready, looking at me, ready to go outside.
Your dog will say hello then. Okay, so this is how assassinations work. And by the way, if the assassination hits you, what happens? There's no player elimination in this game, and there's no slowing down of players like in Junta or something like that. Even though we get compared a lot with Junta, if you know the game, because of the setting. But you have these victory conditions in your hand, right? And these victory conditions open you ways to win the game. For example, this victory condition, for example, what is it? What do we have here? It's Chancellorship. And the thing is that the cycle dice is at 1 because we're in the early game, right? So if the assassination hits you, you need to discard 1 victory condition. If the cycle dice is at 3, if you're in the late game, you need to discard 3 victory conditions. So in the late game, these cards can heavily hit you, while in the early game they do not hit you that hard. But you as a player can always decide what victory conditions to discard. So basically, when you decided, okay, we have a 7 at war, which basically means that war is likely to trigger, you will definitely avoid to discard war. So your options might be to discard, for example, one of the other cards, which is
Monopoly or something, yeah.
exactly. So this is how assassinations work. And now we can continue with phase 4, the role card effects. And Frank, you're the starting player, so you are allowed to play your role card effect first. You as the investor now can build one building onto the map. And for that, you draw 3 field cards. And usually you draw them into your hand so that other players don't see them, but we are doing this so that we can explain it to the players.
Yes.
You can now build one of 3 things onto the map. The offshore counter, for example, is something like a bank where you can lend, or rather borrow, resources or capital. And you need to pay it back with 50% interest or lose victory conditions. The SYNCANITE pipeline adds a specific mechanic that, depending on the player's doctrine, they either profit or not, and controlling the pipeline allows you to decide if the effect is triggered or not. So you can place armies here and simply say, no, we won't trigger the pipeline. With that you can also hold players hostage, by the way, it's pretty fun. And Temple Ruins basically opens up the opportunity to get capital or a dignitary card for free, which is in our version that we play not that relevant, but otherwise a really huge thing, right? So you can choose one of these free, and dependent on your decision, also a crisis gets risen pretty heavy, as you can see, because Temple Ruins adds 2 to war.
And that was the one I was gonna pick.
Well, you can do this. You want to see war, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Great.
So that goes right here on the over here on the
because it has the same name. Temple Ruins is also written here, and it's the same illustration as you can see. So every place is a specific place in this world. By the way, this world, this whole story here, is based on a book that I have written that will also be published this year. So these are specific places from the book that we can now use. And also the map developed. So for example, now the Frost Plateau offers you 20 capital or 1 dignitary. Great, now I'm playing my effect. I'm the censor, so I'm controlling the medium.
So does war go up too, now that that's played?
Yes, you're perfectly right. So we're going to 9. So it's 1 step before war breaks out here. And now I'm drawing 3 headline cards. And I can now play one of these headline cards. These are events that happen. Basically, I'm deciding what the events will be in this world, because I am deciding of what we talk about and what we do not talk about. And the people, of course, can be controlled through the discussion that is publicly available and which is not, right? And to fulfill your dream, Frank, I'm playing the Syncan Threats, which will trigger war. Syncan Threats adds 2 points to war, which means that war is triggered, but first we will resolve the effect of Syncan Threats. Because the card says that Syncan weapons offer immense potential for destruction. Threatening gestures with them are irresponsible and dangerous. And due to the fact that these weapons are so irresponsible, the players will get them. So I'm taking the named cards. I'm taking 3 times Syncan Bombardment and 3 times Liquid Syncanite. All of these cards that I'm placing here on this deck can kill armies on the field. And with that we will arm ourselves now. Let's see. Here's the last card. Okay, there is no last card, which basically means that one of them has this card, which is no problem, because in that case we will shuffle and add another card. And now we will shuffle these cards, and every one of us is allowed to draw one.
Yep.
The rest goes back into the deck. So
and now we're going back to the comp.
So now we both do not know if one of the players has a Syncan Bombardment. And by the way, the Syncan Bombardment is basically a nuke. So
okay.
That's why the card Syncan Threats is really irresponsible and dangerous, you know? So now, war is triggered. What does it mean? The dice gets to 1. I mean, it doesn't get to 1 because we need it at 1, but basically I'm using it to count the war phases now. War gets triggered, which means that we have outbreak of war now. The capital value marker will be risen by 3. The capital value marker is this marker here. We have this marker here at 1 because we are in the first cycle, but where we place this dice determines how the prices in the markets are. There is one role, it's called the magnate. This role here can usually manipulate this thing, but the events of the crisis, as you can see, manipulate these as well. So basically the market prices for everything are +3 now. Not for the cards, but on the markets here, right? So for example, this Syncanite does not cost 9 capital anymore, but 12. So the outbreak of war heavily increased prices because, as you know, war brings inflation, right? So what do we do next? Players take turns occupying a field until all armies are placed in the map or no free territory is left, whichever comes first. You cannot place armies on the capital cities Real, Tigris and Avodo or on the fields occupied by other players. So basically, now we will bring our armies into position before we fight. And the capital cities are the ones with the golden encirclement here, right? So Frank, you can begin as a starting player, you can place armies wherever you want. We will not harvest, it's just about placing armies. And the thing is, I recommend you to place armies in clusters so that you can defend yourself good in them.
In clusters, you said?
In clusters. It's just, you do not need to do this, but it's a recommendation. You placed here, now it's my turn first. It's my turn
I'm sorry.
You have no worries. I go with 2 here, you can again.
Okay. Oh, jeez. Okay.
This is a capital city. You cannot place armies in a capital city.
Whoops. Sorry.
Because the thing is that now we need to take a look at the victory condition here for war. The victory condition of war states war must be active, win by occupying 13 out of 19 fields, or conquer 3 capitals. Right?
Okay.
So basically, we need to keep this in mind when we place our armies in war and play war, basically. Okay, you placed armies into the southern colonies. I will place some armies here in reverse. 3. Your turn again.
Okay. Place 2 right here.
Alright. I will place 3 armies here.
3, and then I'll place the final 3 right here. That's not the capital, right?
Right,
Oh, okay.
because here is the line, the capital is this mountain, same thing here. Exactly. Okay. You place all your armies there, right? So I can use my armies to get the other stuff. I'm taking this, and that, and that, and that, and that. Now you see that I took over the whole north, right? Which basically means that I have one capital basically encircled, which means that it will be easy for me to take over this capital. The critical one is Tychus here in the south, because you have armies there and I also have armies there. We might fight for this capital, but I have most of my armies around Tychus, but you have your armies close to Real. And the thing is, I only have 1 army here and you have 3 armies there, so it's really likely that you get this capital. If one player gets all 3 capitals, they win the game, okay?
Okay.
Now, the outbreak of war has happened. It's an event card, as you can see. The event card is immediate and once, which basically means that we discard it now. And now we see that here's a mechanic card. It's called Conquest Moves, and you might remember, Conquest Moves was the name of the stuff that is marked on the player aid as the war action, right? Conquest Move work a bit different than it is written on this card here, because this card data is not the up-to-date one, but basically Conquest Moves mean that we take some armies, for example, Frank, you can take, for example, 1 army here from Liberia, and move this army into a neighboring field. For example, you can use 1 army to occupy the capital city of Real.
Okay.
These are the conquest moves, basically. Each player has 5 of them, and if player armies meet, for example, if I now want to say, okay, I will move my army into Real as well, then they will fight. And for that we use dice, okay?
Okay.
Good. Now we are still in phase 4. We just used our roll cards effects to trigger war. Because, simply we are proceeding. Player trading will be the next point. Sometimes there is a situation in which players want to trade. In duels it often doesn't happen, so we will skip that. Fill up armies basically means that if you have less armies than 10, for example, you're in this game here, it's 10 because the minimum limit of armies is 10, right? Because our starting armies are 10, right? Then they get filled up. It simply helps players that get behind a bit. But we all both have at least 10 armies, so it doesn't happen. So now we have the dice roll for market changes. The people that live in this world consume and produce themselves a lot of stuff, and in the game there will be a custom dice 10 that determines if they consume or produce and how much. So this dice 10 will have numbers from +5 till -5, which basically means that we roll the dice and add or deduct resources from the markets. Due to the fact that Tabletop Simulator does not have a custom dice, we will simply use this normal dice here, and everything above 5 will be minus, okay?
Okay.
We have a 4, so the Syncanite market will get 4 resources. So Syncanite got mined, not consumed. Then we have a 0, which basically is a 10, so 5 food gets discarded from the food market, as you can see.
So now it's more expensive.
Actually not, because as you can see, the food market always is here at 4, but the supply of food is not that high. So if you buy one food for 4, the next one costs 8.
Okay.
There are price elasticities into that market. So for example, food is really cheap most of the time, because food, you don't get that much for food, right? But the thing is, when the people starve and hunger, they are willing to pay everything they have. And that's why the jump from 4 to 8 is so heavy here. So we have an exponential growing of prices here. It's 2, it's 4, it's 8, right? In comparison, the SYNCANITE market has a linear price development, because the aristocracy of this world will pay every price for SYNCANITE. They do not care if it costs 6 or 9 or 12 or 15. They can afford it. As you can see, the maximum price for food is 8. This is because the people cannot pay more than 8. The normal people. The aristocracy will have food, then even if there's no one on the market, because we simply control the granary, right? Which basically means that we have a linear price development here up to 15, which is double the amount of food if we have a famine, which tells you a bit about the world we are playing in here, right? And to end this little TED talk here, the goods market has a lot of zero, because we do not want to overproduce, but you can. And with that you can trigger a crisis, but I'll get to that. As you can see, we have a degressive growth, because we get from 0 to 3, which is free capital, but then you get from 3 to 5, which is just 2 capital. So it's growing degressive, because at some point the people say, okay, if I can't afford it, I will not buy it, I don't need it, I don't want it for that high price, right? And the thing is, if we put goods into that market here and fill it up, you see here's the I and the plus 10. So basically, if we fill up the whole goods market, we'll add plus 10 onto the monopoly crisis and immediately trigger the economic crisis. And it's the other way around on the other markets. For example, if we take a look on the food markets, if we empty the food market, we'll add 10 points onto triage. I mean, if there's no food available, we have a food crisis, right? We will have a famine. And the same applies for SYNCANITE. If we remove all the SYNCANITE, we will get 10 points on tyranny, which basically means that we now have a tyranny crisis, because the people that mine the SYNCANITE now have full control about us in that case. Alright, we did the market roads for SYNCANITE and food. Now we do it for the goods, and this is an 8, which means minus 3 goods. Each player has now a last transaction, as we can see on the player 8. Then we will get into phase 1 again. So, Frank, you now can do another transaction, and I highly recommend you to invest your food into armies, because we will fight in phase 1. We will do conquest oaths. You invest everything, I guess.
Okay, so so 1 food equals 1 army guy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I have, let's see how many I got here. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6. So I'll pay the 6. Where is it? Oh, right here.
There.
What? Okay.
These are the here. This one is for 10 food, but
okay. It's the ball. Yes. Okay.
Exactly. So
now I can place my army wherever I want.
And you can place your armies where you already have armies, so you can strengthen your positions.
Got it.
By the way, I will do this transaction as well. I have 2 food, which basically means that I will place another 2 armies, and I place them here. these were our transactions. Then we are going back into phase 1. And now the cycle dice gets to 2, simply because we are in the second cycle now, which basically means that some effects are stronger now. Okay. We will redraw our doctrine, which basically means that we put them back on the stack. We as the oligarchs are traveling the world again now. We're getting a new base or whatever. So we draw a new doctrine. I got malice this time. And you get scheming. Beautiful. You get 2 bribery cards for free.
Nice.
I get 2 operation cards for free because I'm a malice player. And now a special effect applies, because you remember that the doctrines gave you advantages in this bidding competition for the fields, right? In this some kind of worker placement mechanic. I personally call it war placement, simply because we push each other out, right? Now we do not push each other out, which basically means that we get new effects. Each of the doctrines has a line which states during wartime. For example, during wartime, the schema player has the effect that your opponent can only use 1 dice in case of a fight. So basically you have far better chances than me because you force me to use less dice, okay? And the thing is, I as a malice player, during wartime, kill 3 armies for each battle you win. The thing is, if we have a battle, we roll dices, and we usually kill 1 army. But I kill 3 armies at once because I'm a malice player. Okay?
Okay.
And my private military company effect triggers again, so I get another 3 armies now, which I will place here. Okay. We now need to determine who starts the game. In the first phase, we used a dice for that. Right? It was random. And now, at the second time, we can use our capital to bid for it. But the thing is, no one of us has capital, which is why we will do another dice roll again. But just that, all the road here, that it's something that we can influence strategically. Okay, you will basically be the starting player with 19. Yes, you are.
Nice.
Alright, so Frank, you're again the starting player, and every player now has 5 conquest moves. You can move up to 10 armies at once into a neighboring field to attack it or to occupy it, and I will count the conquest move you're in with this dice here.
So I can move everybody into here?
You can do this, exactly.
Okay.
So now we have a fight. Alright, we have a fight.
That's what I want to see.
6 versus 5 armies in that case. You are the attacker, which means that you get 3 dice here, and the attacker always gets 3 dice. Even though if you're only attacking with 1 army, you still get 3 dice. And I, as a defender, get 2 dice, but your doctrine now says that I need to defend myself with only 1 dice, because the schema players have a great network of spies and know all my moves, which limits my options and my opportunities to surprise you, right? The thing is, we're now.
So I can.
Yes.
Yeah. So I could play red cards at this moment, correct?
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Okay. I will play this red card right here.
All right. You will burn 3 armies for me, right? This is really heavy. Because now these 3 armies immediately die. You simply blew them up. This card gets discarded now. So now I'm fighting with 2 armies. I'm fighting 6. Now a special thing applies, because we now have a so-called mass advantage. I mean, if you see 6 versus 2, this is not a fair fight, right? Yeah. If you attack someone or defend against someone with 3 times more troops, then you get the mass advantage, meaning each dice that you throw now gets +1.
Okay.
The thing is, only the highest dice counts. So basically, we are going 1 dice against 1, but you have 2 more chances to get something good. And now you also have a mass advantage. Really heavy. So now we can roll the dice. I get a 5. You have a 4, but you get +1, 5. But the thing is, I, as a defender, win, because in the case of a tie, the defender wins. This is why you have 3 dice. And now my doctrine effects come into play. And when I win 1 battle, I kill 3 armies at once.
Oof, that hurts.
That hurts, indeed. And this now equals the situation, because now you do not have a mass advantage anymore, right? Because you do not have 3 times as much armies as me anymore. You're fighting with 3 versus 2, okay?
Okay.
Sorry, these were your dice. Ignore that. I'm doing the next dice roll. I have a 6 now. Ooh. Your 3 armies will die here.
Wow.
This was really unlucky because you had more dice and also the mass advantage. This was really unlucky. I'm so sorry for you. But sometimes it happens. So this was your first conquest move. So now it's my time, and triumphant as I am, I will move 2 armies into this capital city, and with that I made the first point on my way to win by war, because I now took over the first capital city.
Okay.
Now we get into the second conquest move. It's your turn again.
Alright, so I will go with the 6 here into Real.
Alright, then I will do my second move, and I will attack you with 3 armies here.
Okay.
You do not have a mass advantage because I'm fighting 3 versus 6, but this can change. And the thing is, now you get 2 dice to defend yourself because you're a defender, but I only get 1 dice because you're a schemer, right?
Yep.
So, and the thing is, in case of a tie, you win because you're the defendant, you already have some balls to fight me off. Okay, now I will lose 1 army because you won 1 fight, and now you have a mass advantage, which is pretty terrible for me, which is why I will play my liquid syncanite. Boom. I kill 3 armies, and even out the situation, because now you need to keep one thing in mind. I'm a malice player, so if you lose all 3 armies. If you win...
And I can't play any cards, right?
Yeah, you can play cards if you have some.
I sure do.
Oh my god! Boom! With that, you defended the capital city. If I would have got this capital city, by the way, I could have easily taken over Armadu and win the game, right? So as you can see, it's really dynamic how these fights can turn out and how fast this expert game can end with just 1 victory condition over, right?
Yeah, I see. The game can play very fast. I could tell.
Exactly. All right, so my conquest move is over. We get into the third conquest move. Frank, what's your turn?
Okay. So, we got 2 there, 2 there. Let's, I only got 3 there. Okay, I'm gonna move... Let's move up here.
Let me advise you with something. I want to advise you that you leave at least 1 army here, and I will tell you why.
1.
When you take your victory condition again into your hand, supremacy, we'll take a look at it. There's written, for each capital you control, you gain something, because at the end of the 5 conquest moves, we will harvest all the fields that you control, okay?
Yeah.
And each capital city gives you a bonus. Your army minimum gets risen by 5, which means that you need to pay less maintenance and get more armies for free back in the fill-up. Also, you get +2 influence of your choice, so you can draw either operations or bribery. And you get taxes. You get 30 capital for the capital city and 15 capital per field occupied within the respective nation. And you can see the nation of Real has this orange line here, right? which basically states that the Iron Front here, or the Hügellande, the Mounty lands here, they all belong to the nation of Real.
Okay.
And I want you to get not only the one good here, but I also want to get you the bonus of 15 capital taxes from Kevia, from this southern part here, because you control the capital city now.
Yep.
Make sense?
Makes sense. Yep.
Perfect. So you will move one army here, right? Or do you want to leave 2 armies here and move some armies from the capital city? You can also do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's put one here in Hügelland.
Okay. So now
You know what?
it's my third turn, and I will do this. Because of course I still want this capital city, right? Now you can make an interesting decision. The thing is, I will always annihilate 3 armies at once, right? Because I'm a Malice player. So now defending with 2 armies is basically 1 defending dice roll, right? Which means that you can now do 2 things. You can, for example, attack me with 1, so that you get another dice roll here.
Okay.
And I would highly recommend that, because in the case that you lose this one and you also lose this one, then I get this capital city, right? I only win if I have all 3 capital cities at the end of the conquest moves. So basically, if you have a last conquest move and my armies are in Real, you can use your Mounty Land armies to take another turn, right?
Yep.
All right. So, do you want to attack me from the capital city?
Sure.
Of course, makes sense, right? Good. 3 dice for you. The red ones are the ones for the aggressive players, you know, and 1 black for me. I'm using this one. You will use these here, okay?
Okay. G.
Ooh.
Good.
But at least you tried. Good. Then we get into the... This was your 4th conquest move, so I will do my 4th conquest move now. I will attack here.
Yep.
2 dice for you, 1 dice for me. Okay, this is a 3.
Where's that die? Oh.
The thing is, this is a 4 because I have a mass advantage again. 3 versus 1, right?
Yeah.
And I only won this fight because of the mass advantage. Right?
Yeah. So now you control 2. So now you can easily just go here and win.
Exactly. Which basically means that now you need to take this army and fight off all of these here. If you cannot, I will win by war.
Okay. So obviously that's what I'll do.
All right. 3 for the attacker, 1 for the defendant. I have 4.
Okay, so
But
that
the
killed
thing is,
1.
I have a mass advantage because 3 versus 1 again, which means that I have a 5.
So I died.
You died.
Oh no. Oh wait, I thought because you're the defender. Yep.
Yes.
And obviously you would probably just go in here and then win the game.
And now I activate the supremacy. Supremacy tells that I occupied 3 capital cities and the war triumph is mine. Our triumph marks the beginning of a new era. Let us remember the honor and honor the fallen.
Interesting. And there's all these different ones in here as well, right? Like this is a like this one has a victory condition. It was a conquest. Or was that all part of
It's all part of this.
war.
So this is the only victory condition. All players have the same victory conditions, and this system, mechanic and victory condition in combination, open and multiply, not multiply, but evolutionized each part of the game. So war, for example, evolutionizes phase 1. Kleptocracy and speculative transactions here is an economic victory in which you simply buy your victory with capital. So in that case, you get more options in phase 2. The same is here with the supply crisis. It's also an economic thing, but it doesn't make you rich, but it makes you really poor, which basically means that you need to do humanitarian donations so that the people do not revolt and kill the elites, right? And the thing is, here you can win by having the most victory conditions after it, because if you do not donate or cannot donate, you will lose victory conditions, which basically states that not losing victory conditions equals being an honorable player because you donate and the others don't, right? Terror and virtue on the other side, and cutthroat politics upgrades phase 3, because then the rejection cards, for example, can be used to hurt other players, because with cutthroat politics we can use rejection cards against other players so that they need to discard victory conditions, or that they need to discard, for example, influence cards from their hand, because we need our influence cards to win the game, because the player that has the most consent, I do not have a consent card at the moment to show off, but I take one, for example, if I have the most consent when the Chancellor gets elected, and when you take a look on the player aid in phase 3, election of the Chancellor comes right after cutthroat politics, then you win the game because you had the most consent on your hand, right? So this is a political victory where the rejection consent cards get upgraded. And the last one is a specific scenario here, ascendancy. The ascendant is this guy here. This guy is the founder of the SYNCANITE Foundation. He established this aristocratic system, and he usually is in the shadows and in the background. But when tyranny starts, the SYNCANITE supply is gone. Or in general, the greed for SYNCANITE has become too much, and then he gets out of the shadows and says, "What are you guys doing there?" And then everyone needs to discard the victory condition, and the player who's the last player to hold victory conditions in their hand wins the game, because this is the only player that is worthy to stay in the foundation, because then the boss here, the ascendant, basically puts us against each other and tyrannizes us. So basically tyranny does not mean that we get power, we are the vassals of him and suffer.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's a very interesting game, man. I really like what's going on over here. And like I said, this plays very fast. And probably play even faster with 3-4 players. And you said it goes up to 6?
The thing is that the duel mode is exactly designed the way that it ends fast, so that you can learn easily. For example, now you learned how war works. So if you play another game, you can, for example, try to win by war, because you exactly know everything now that you need to know about war.
Yeah.
And
now,
in another game,
yeah.
In another game, you could learn another strategy, for example. This is actually something that I recommend in the rulebook, that you play, for example, with just one crisis open at the beginning, simply to learn how does this crisis affect gameplay, so that I can use this gameplay to win.
Okay.
Usually a game ends after 3 to 5 cycles. I just had the luck that you placed most of your armies on the bottom side, so that I do not need to fight for the upper side here, right? And the other thing is that we drew so much cards to blue armies up. Otherwise, I would not have had this great chances. And I also got some armies in the beginning for free with the private military company, right? This was simply my advantage, that I had so much armies for free. Usually, this would not happen so fast. Also, 2 to 3 of your dice rolls were really unlucky, right? But what I want to tell is that a game...
But there's that mitigation, though.
Can you repeat, please? Sorry?
You do have that mitigation with the card, so I feel like you should always, if you are somebody who wants to go with war, you should be going after these operation cards.
Exactly. No one who wants to win with war plays fair, but you also need a lot of armies, right? So you need, if you want to play a war strategy, definitely go for food, and definitely go for the goods. But the thing is, you can also use your SYNCANITE to sell it on the market for high prices, because SYNCANITE will always be the most valuable resource, so that you get capital to buy food and goods from the market, right?
Yeah.
And with them, you can get the cards.
Interesting. Yep. No, I will say this though. I'm still trying to there is a lot going on, but I feel that again, I feel this is a game that you have to play to learn. Like somebody explaining it. It is a little bit more again because of all the stuff going on with the markets and how each of these cards here they can change the way the game is played. But it's not that bad. I do like again, once I see the rule book too, whenever I play it over here at the convention, I'm pretty sure it'll be a lot more easier. But yeah, there is a lot going on. But I do like what you guys are doing here. You got something really special going on.
Thank you.
I do think though, this is just me personally. I think that I would start when I do play this over at the convention. I think I would start with these dignitaries. I think they make it a little bit more interesting.
Okay.
And I think people here would actually enjoy it a lot more with these dignitaries.
That's totally fine. You can decide that.
Yeah.
The thing is, personally, the dignitaries are just the coolest cards that you have here. I mean, for example, the Zoric Treasurer, right? This guy who is also on our flyers that I will give you. This guy here is the guardian of Real. He's basically emperor here in Real. And you can bribe him so that he works for you. That's how powerful we as oligarchs are, right? That even the king is someone that we can control a bit. And I mean, for example, his effects are perfect for war because he is a general. I mean, as you can see, there's a fluff text on the upper side. The Guardian of Real is an agile commander whose troops are among the most capable and disciplined on the continent. The Praetorians of the Imperium, whom he personally trained, have often turned the tide, and his effects are exactly that. Each dignitary has 3 unique effects, which basically means that the dignitary pack, which will be in the crowdfunding available as a little extra, gives you 15 heroes with 45 new unique effects, right? So his first effect, for example, here is power projection. 2 times in each phase 1, you can pay 2 Syncanite to move your armies from one field to another to attack according to the rules of war. So basically in war you get 2 more turns. You can also do this without war. So basically we are having our peaceful bidding competition, but Zoric simply attacks people because he can.
Yeah.
And simultaneous maneuvers, his second effect, allows you to do 2 moves in a row or to occupy 2 fields simultaneously. Imagine that, for example, one army here can move 2 moves in a row, boom, boom, because he's that agile. Or you can, for example, attack from 2 sides at once. For example, Frank here, if you have one army in the southern colonies, Zoric can attack you with 1 from here and 2 from there, and then I have 3. This opens up totally new strategies, right? Which is really, really strong on Zoric. And the last effect is unfair a bit, because you can pay 3 Syncanite to double the combat value on one field present until the end of the phase, but this is only at peace times. So when we want to overbid something, for example, here I have 3 armies here. I do not want that this field gets outbidded in peace, right? So I can pay 3 Syncanite so that this here counts as 6 armies. So I can place, for example, 1 dice here. We now know, oh, I need to place at least 7 armies here. And if you have, for example, the doctrine here, the superiority doctrine, then you need to out-double that as well, because the superiority doctrine already doubled everything, right?
Yeah.
Superiority here. So this in combination is really deadly. The other thing is, in war, you can pay 5 Syncanite to upgrade your armies in one fight. The upgrade means that your minimum dice result is always 4. 4 of 6. So when you have, for example, superiority, which adds 1 to your dice, right? You have always at least 5 on your dice roll. And if you also have the mass advantage, your dice result is always 6. These are the Praetorians of the Empire, the most elite troops on the continent that then simply annihilate everything.
Interesting.
So if you have Zorik, you can definitely play for war. And each dignitary has its unique effects. And I will not explain everything now, don't worry. But basically, for example, a Maverick Shylock, who is the head of the Avadian Conclave, he is more of a diplomat and not a warmonger, right? So he, for example, has a really unique effect which is called Crisis Diplomacy. You can pay 2 Syncanite to reduce the counter of a crisis by 1. So for example, if you're trying to make a political victory, which is really easily made with Maverick Shylock because he gets bribery cards for the half price. You can pay 2 Syncanite to draw 2 bribery cards, right? So basically you get a lot of influence so that you can get consent cards for the Chancellor victory and stuff, right? But also you can pay Syncanite so that a player with Zorik, for example, doesn't get war. You can always do diplomacy to lift the tensions so that war does not get active or gets active really, really late in the game, right?
And 2 things can be activated at once. So war and monopoly can both be activated at the same time,
right.
correct?
It can, all 5 can be activated at the same time.
And
in late game, this happens.
Okay.
I recommend for new players to start with that they, for example, only trigger 3 crises, or that they play, for example, a 1v1 game like we did, where it's a clear focus, for example, on war, something like that. But when you once get into the system, I mean, the 4 phases are always the same. You place your armies, you harvest, you trade your resources and buy cards, you vote on laws, you use your roll card effects, and that's it. And if you know this, you can play this game, because everything else can be learned on the fly due to the fact that you can read each card, on play combinations, and experience a lot of great stuff.
Yeah. No, I really like it a lot. This is a really cool game you got going on here, man.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
Great. This is, I guess, a great little.
I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people are gonna like it too. It's a very political type game. I think a lot of war gamers are gonna like this. And I think a lot of people who like those political games. I don't know if you ever played John Company. I think they will like this a lot as well.
Actually,
even though
we got compared a lot with this game, but we also get compared with games like Root, for example, because of this highly asymmetric area control thing. But we also get compared to games like Hegemony, because we are so political and also have this resource management aspect here. But we also have some kind of hand management, which also makes it complicated somehow. But not complicated, but interesting, more to say.
Yeah.
But we also get, for example, compared with Twilight Imperium, because in Twilight Imperium we have exactly these kinds of laws that give you these choices to, for example, hurt everybody, or to upgrade everybody, or simply maybe some races get an advantage in Twilight Imperium, like the humans, whatever. I have not played it, but I was told by people, so if I got something wrong, I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. And this is something that we get compared with the law mechanic. That's exactly that thing. I didn't know this before when I designed this, by the way, which was really fun to find out then. And we also get compared with Junta, because we also have this assassination mechanic, and we also have this theme of oligarchs, or rather statesmen, that do their deals, right? But the thing is, in Junta, the assassination mechanic stops you from playing, which is just feels bad. It's just something like a little player elimination. We do not have this here, though. You're just losing victory conditions, and through that, highly narrow down the options that other players have to win the game. Maybe you might ask, okay, what happens if I have no victory conditions anymore? What happens? I cannot win the game then, right? You can, because here's the so-called Pariah Revenge deck. And the Pariah cards are basically that you are a cast out. You lost all the trust from the people, you lost all your power, right? And then you go a really, really dark path. If you do this, you can draw 3 pariah revenge cards and choose one. I will just draw one. For example, here Spider in the Shade. It is a special victory condition that allows you to win the game in a specific way, because each pariah revenge card gives you a new victory condition and also a weapon to achieve your goal. And Spider in the Shade is a special one because Spider in the Shade, for example, allows me to say, guys, I am the only one that can win with war anymore. You can exclude other players from a victory condition and also take over it. And the other thing Spider in the Shade does, you can draw as many cards till you have 10 in your hand. So for example, I play all my cards, then I play Spider in the Shade, and then I forge war and I draw 10 operation cards for that. It's insane. And this is exactly the thing that these cards try to achieve. They simply want to make the players keep the balance between each other. You know,
so it's a catch-up mechanic.
Not just a catch-up mechanic. A catch-up mechanic, in my opinion, rewards a player for playing bad. This does not. This mechanic allows you that if 2 players, if you're playing a game with 3 people, for example, right? If 2 players always go against you, they will regret it. They will regret it because the pariah cards are so overpowered and unfair that you will basically suffer a lot if you give it to a player. So basically, the fantasy that we try to achieve here is that the oligarchs in this council, they know each other really well. They always do their political games, but there is some kind of structure to it. There are some unwritten rules that they comply with. But when you go over the line, then the pariah cards come in. And then it gets really dirty, so to say.
Interesting.
And with that, we simply try that the players keep a balance, plot in the shadows, and if you go over the line, the ideal situation is that your plot, your coup, hits them so heavy that you win. For example, like I did in this war, because my positioning of armies was perfect. I had a lot of armies. I was able to annihilate you, Frank, in this one conquest moves phase, right? This is the ideal situation to win the game. If you prolong war, it gets more and more complicated. The people can prepare, the people can draw cards, the people can buy armies, they can bunker themselves in, etc, etc, etc. It's always good to get the people on a cold foot and hit them hard. And that's exactly what you're supposed to do in this game. And so that the others do not get that much counterplay, because otherwise you will regret it, because it will get really dirty.
Interesting. Well, I like it. Like it a lot. I think a lot of people are gonna like it as well, Timo.
I'm glad that you say that.
I think you got yourself a hit over here. Like I said, I have Hegemony. I have yet to play it, but I see like a little bit of mixture of John Company, some Twilight Imperium. But you know, like I said, it's a very unique game. But yeah, I haven't seen anything else similar to this out there. But I do like that you got a lot going on, but it's not gonna. You could play a 4-player game in about an hour and a half. It could go by really quick.
Exactly. The thing is that the playtime is 30 to 45 minutes per player. And I mean, we also played this 1.5 hours now with explanation, playing first time, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that when you play with 4 people, for example, you can get through in 2 or 3 hours. And which is really great, because then you can play a revanche, you can play another game in the same evening. The problem with games like Twilight Imperium, I hear it from a lot of people telling that me, is that you need to play hours and hours and hours. You cannot get to an end. You know where I experienced that? I personally, I know it's not the best game to refer to, you should not do that, but I personally love it to play Risk with my family, the board game Risk. And we all know that this is a pretty basic and bad game design when you compare it to expert level games from nowadays.
Oh, absolutely.
But It's a lot of fun to fight for hours and hours with the people that love doing it. But you can never play this game because the people always say, it's too long. No, we need to plan this 1 month in advance. I do not want SYNCANITE Foundation to be a game that you like to play but cannot get out on the table because you need too much time for it. Time is so limited nowadays, especially when you have kids or when you're in your job. I mean, I'm in my mid-20s at the moment, and I just experienced how it is. You have a lot of time as a student, and boom, you're in the job.
And you're a young guy, man. You gotta wait till you have kids and you get close to 40. It's gonna hit. It's gonna hit you.
And that's why I want to tackle this problem with this game. You have a game that allows you to play military, economic, and political intrigue in less than 2 hours.
Oh yeah, no, it does definitely plays fast. And like I said, I don't want to say it's a problem because I understand why some games go 7, 8 hours. There was one I played not too long ago back in the summer. It was an amazing game. It took us 7 hours. It didn't feel like 7 hours, but it's a game that you gotta plan. You have to plan like a few weeks in advance to play, and that's one thing you really don't. I feel like it draws a lot of people away. I'm not gonna spend my hard-earned money on something like that. So for a game, I'm probably gonna play maybe once to rarely 3 times a year. And, this is very easy to table. The setup looks very simple. And you said everything is gonna be chips, right? There's no meeples or minis, right?
The only meeples that there are for the 10 food, for example. But these are simply this symbol here. I'm showing it here with my camera. This symbol here. It's just that you know that I have 10, so that your board isn't that busy. But that's it, basically. You just need some cards, you need a board, or you need some resources, and some dice. And then you're ready to go.
And the money is gonna be paper money?
The money is gonna be cards, but mini cards.
Okay.
I think
I know
paper money feels cheap and awful.
Please people are like really against paper money.
Don't worry.
We
will do beautiful, maybe Euro mini cards or something like that. The details are to be sorted out with the manufacturer, but everything is finished 95%. We're just doing some little corrections here and there, some little clarification here and there. But basically the game is finished here, and we cannot wait to get it funded on Kickstarter and to ship it to you this year. Because everything, the production pipeline and logistics pipeline is set up that we deliver the game in September 2025. And I guess this is another promise that most of Kickstarters usually don't or cannot make, but we really want to try it so that and we at the moment, I mean, logistics is something that you cannot control to the fullest. But basically, I heard that 6 to 8 weeks of production, 60 days of production and 6 to 8 weeks of delivery. And due to the fact that we only need to do little adjustments here, we use the month of the Kickstarter and maybe 1 or 2 weeks afterwards, and then we will start producing and we'll deliver to you.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love it when it takes less than a year to arrive. I know there's one company that's known for doing that. Garfield, usually most of the time when you back one of their games, like the South Tigers series, they came in at the end of the year. The crowdfunding campaign would start around February, March, and by November the game was there. I appreciate that. I think a lot of backers will appreciate that as well. People hate waiting a year, 2, 3 years for a game. We have a game over here called Freedom 5 that took 4 years to come. And it's just because of planning, and sometimes there's problems that happen at the factory. It's frustrating.
Exactly.
But when you have a game,
I'm a backer myself. I exactly know these problems, and this time I'm on the other side. I want to do it better, and maybe you guys trust us Germans with logistics.
Yeah.
I
believe you guys
achieve exactly that. Delivering this.
I believe it. But yeah, man, really enjoyed it. I hope the people that were watching it, I know it's probably gonna be a long video, but you could see what's coming. And again, I'm hoping the American audience sees this. Not only America. I know a lot. I have subscribers all over the world, but I'm hoping the American audience sees this and would appreciate it and looks forward to the campaign. You said January 28th.
Exactly, January 28th.
Yeah.
Everything will start. By the way, just one thing I want to tell you guys again: this game is a language game, and currently there's a trend that you do language independent games because it's easier to produce and ship worldwide. We exactly do not do this because first it allows us to do more complex effects, but second, this is a narrative, a highly thematic game because it's based on the book that I've written. And this game, when you play it, it tells you a story. Each card has fluff text, for example. This game has 8,000 plus words of fluff text in it. You do not need to read any of these to play it, but in my personal experience and opinion, it creates a flavor that makes everything feel strong and meaningful. And each mechanic that we have in this game is designed with the flavor and the actions of the story in mind. We do not design a game because we want to control and we want to combine an area control mechanic with some kind of aggressive worker placement and resource management and this and this and this. No, we created it so that you can experience how is it to be this oligarch that uses military, economic and political pressure from the shadows, and I can't wait for you to try it.
Yeah. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up too. Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to bring up. I am big with player interaction. You know, here's my problem with Euro. I do like Euro games. I'm starting to get into them more, but I do not like when they're multiplayer solitaire.
Yes.
You know, it's like, you know, you want to play with, you know, the main reason is for game nights is to have a game with your friends. You want to interact with them.
Exactly.
And that's why I don't like games like Agricola. I did not like Feast for Odin. It's like, all right, I'm doing my own thing, but I want to interact with everybody else. And this is heavily interactive. I that's what I look for when I'm playing any type of board game. Again, yeah, there's games that I like that have somewhat like indirect interactions and stuff, but the gameplay intrigues me. The problem with a lot of Euros is that the interaction is minimal, and I feel like that hurts the replayability. And here you have a lot of interaction, which is what I like.
I mean, you know these Euro games that are basically just something like a math task, right? You simply need to calculate.
Math is not my strong subject, man. It's not my strong subject.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The thing is, I personally think exactly the same way, and that's why I chose this design. That's also why, for example, chose a design without victory points, because I feel, for example, I'm a huge fan of Dune Imperium, for example, right? I really like playing it, but you win because you get some victory points, and of course you're ahead from the others, but the others might still have some aces, or maybe they have a lot of armies or something like that. In my opinion, it does not feel right that you claim the throne of Emperor and win the Dune Imperium game by victory points, simply because the others were not defeated. You're just the one that made the most points, and that's what I really wanted to change with these victory conditions. But the game will always end that fast due to the fact that the game is designed in a way so that mathematically you will all be dead at least after 5 cycles, basically. So basically, you can also simply try to, well, basically not get hurt. If you play this game a bit passively and get the resources, defend yourself great and stuff, then this crisis mechanic might simply kill the other players. because, for example, in triage, you need to donate. If you cannot donate, you will lose victory conditions. If you have no victory conditions, you might get a pariah card and strike back, but maybe then I am the guy who wins with tyranny because I'm the last person with a victory condition, right? And that's how tyranny, for example, is a game ender that always limits the play time, even though we're really defeating the other players. And not just winning by victory points, which is something that I personally value because it makes a victory feel like a victory, right?
Yeah. No, definitely.
I mean, I crushed you out of the 3 capital cities with sheer violence. This feels like real supremacy I achieved here.
That's what I like. It does have that thematic feel to it. But yeah, man, really enjoyed the game.
Thanks a lot. And I guess
I hope more
this
people
is
get
a situation which we can slowly wrap up the video here, and I guess that Frank and I will do another video shortly or something like that. And well, do you want to say something in the end, or?
Yeah. So no, I will do. This is gonna be on my YouTube channel. I'm gonna try to post what we just did, and I will be bringing this game to a convention here in New York. Timon is nice enough to send me a prototype that I will be showing off at the Long Island Tabletop Expo. So if anybody here in Long Island or is going to be in Long Island in early April, I will be showing this game off over there. So if you're in the area or if you're going to be in the area, come through, and this game will be there. And then I will probably do more videos later on it. When I have the prototype copy, I will do again, the campaign will be over by then, but I will be doing a preview video and a review at once the final copy comes in.
We're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys. See you in the next video.